Hello and welcome to the Sofixit Data Tech podcast. I'm Kacper, your host for today. In this series, we explore real-world data engineering and modern data platforms. I'm a data engineer at Sofixit, and we often help organizations modernize legacy big data stacks. Today, I'm excited because we're diving into Ilum, a free and open data lakehouse platform that's generating buzz as an alternative to legacy Hadoop and expensive vendor log tools. Joining me is a special guest, Florian. Florian is one of the early external adopters of Ilum and the creator of an independent Ilum Course. It's work hand-on with the platform. Florian, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Kacper. It's great to be here as a passionate data expert and the instructor behind the Ilum Course. So, my name is Florian Roscheck. I'm a senior data scientist and a global leader in consumer goods and industrial solutions. And my own data career has really been built on curiosity and online learning. So, I actually got my start in data science while working in the US, and now I'm based in Germany. You know, the technical stack for running data use cases in a business can be pretty complex. And personally, in my free time, I was really excited to see how Ilum brings so many components together. And this inspired me in the end to create the Ilum Course. The Ilum Course is an independent learning initiative, and it helps professionals and enthusiasts. So maybe you belong to professionals or enthusiasts if you're listening to this podcast. It teaches them how modern data lakehouses work and how to apply them in a real-world business environment. And I want to empower data teams to build the skills that make them successful in the data landscape of the future.
Fantastic. For our listeners, we will cover everything from what Ilum is and what makes it special, to flexible deployment scenarios, think on-prem versus cloud, even running on a local machine, to some of Ilum's core features like platform-wise automated data lineage tracking. We'll also discuss how Ilum enables both low-code ease and developer-friendly customization via APIs. Then we'll get into business features like cost control, governance, and security, and finally, how to get started with Ilum. Whether you're just trying it out or considering migration from an old Hadoop or Cloudera system. Sounds good, Florian?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Let's do it. There's a lot we're going to cover here.
So let's start at the beginning for those who haven't heard of Ilum. Ilum is a cloud-native data lakehouse platform that you can develop anywhere, on the cloud or on premises or running big data workloads. X brings together Apache Spark for heavy-duty data processing, a SQL engine, plus all of the tools data teams need, like notebooks, dashboard, and orchestration, all integrated in one place. Essentially, Ilum lets you stand up a complete data platform with storage, compute, analytics on Kubernetes in minutes instead of months, and it's free.
Yeah, that's a great summary, and what I love as a data nerd about Ilum is the extreme flexibility. So you can connect to a variety of storage systems. There are open source integrations like Apache Spark, Jupyter Notebooks. As a data scientist, you might also like this with MLflow. And as a result of these many integrations, you really have cutting edge features and you have flexibility, which means everything is super, super scalable. You also have some business-ready features, and we're going to talk about some of those later in this podcast, like cost control. There's a focus on data governance and observability. Also, Kacper, we talk about this OpenLineage, and lineage features in general are super prevalent in Ilum. So you can really use it in an efficient way in a business where it's all about data governance and cost efficiency. When I made the course, there were also some surprise features of Ilum that from open source integrations that I didn't even know exist. So, for example, there's Apache Superset. It's used by Airbnb and it's a dashboarding solution like Power BI or Tableau. But talking about Power BI and Tableau, Ilum also has integrations with those two tools. This open source community really developing solutions like Apache Superset is awesome, and Ilum is totally ready to connect this with well-supported corporate tools. One other thing, when I made the course, I got a lot of support from the Ilum team whenever I had questions. And I just want to say thanks to the Ilum team here, but also thank you, Kacper, for giving the opportunity to me here to talk about my course. My feeling about Ilum is it's easy to get started and kind of everything is there.
Yeah, you painted a picture of a platform that's both flexible and comprehensive. You get the openness of the best open source tools with the convenience of integrated products, plus a new bells and whistles for the enterprise needs. Now let's dig into the flexibility aspect with some real examples. One thing that impressed me about Ilum is how it can be used in so many different scenarios, from a single data analyst tinkering on their laptop to a big enterprise replacing a giant Hadoop cluster. I will start with an example from my experience. We had a large client struggling with their old data platform. They had a sizable on-prem Cloudera Hadoop setup with processing a massive amount of data. The system was cracking under the load, those were slow, and they were paying huge licensing fees. We helped them modernize by developing Ilum on a Kubernetes, in their case on premises using their own servers. The result was remarkable. Their daily Spark jobs started running in roughly half the time compared to their own environment, and since Ilum eliminates the need for Cloudera licenses, they slashed their software cost by over 40%.
That's a great story, and I think behind this is that Ilum is built on Kubernetes, and Kubernetes can really be deployed anywhere. So, for example, you can deploy Kubernetes on your local machine. And Kacper, when I was making the course, students had at the beginning issues installing Ilum on their local machine because they were in a corporate environment where a lot of stuff was locked down. So there's also a way to deploy Kubernetes, of course, on Google Cloud. And if you are just doing it for development purposes, I wrote an article recently that is also published on the Ilum blog, where you can learn how to install and bring up Ilum on Google Cloud. So you have an experimental environment that you can get started with and play with Ilum pretty quickly.
That's inspiring. Going from enterprise to a small test setup. It really highlights that flexibility, cloud on on-prem, big data or small data, production on even learning environment. Ilum can do it. You mentioned research labs and other strict environments. That reminds me that some organizations like healthcare, government, and sensitive research have strict data sovereignty rules. They can use public cloud services or must keep data entirely within a secure network. Traditional cloud-based platforms are no-go for these cases. In fact, that Ilum can be deployed fully on premises, even in air-gapped environment with no internet, is huge for them.
And when you have this modularity that Ilum has, you also have flexibility of which features to enable and for whom. And from an education perspective, it's also great because you can go through module by module and really direct and focus your learning. And actually, in the course, we go through many different Ilum modules step by step. Funny enough, this modular approach also helps in education in general, in educating about data pumps. So there's Professor Widi from Indonesia who uses Ilum in research. Okay, and there's an interview that I recorded with him that's also available on the course website, ilumcourse.com.
From an installation perspective, Ilum uses Helm chart to deployment on Kubernetes, which make customization straightforward. If you want to enable or disable a component, it's often just a setting in the Helm config. This means you could deploy a lean version of Ilum on, say, a local Minikube cluster for testing and a fully loaded version on large cloud Kubernetes cluster for production, using the same Helm charts with different parameters. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So let's summarize what we talked about there. So Ilum is flexible in usage, and because of all the Kubernetes integration in deployment. And for me, that's also a good reason to make a course about it. I'm personally very excited about this. And for you, maybe you're also excited to try it, which means you should go out and do it. It's easy to install, and you can find by now a lot of resources on how to do this.
Let's dive into the technical feature, data lineage. Data lineage basically means understanding how different data sets are related and how data flows through your pipelines. Historically, lineage is hard to capture, especially when your data platform involves many siloed tools. Ilum, however, claims to have lineage built-in across the platform. Florian, could you explain how Ilum handles data lineage, especially for Spark jobs, and why it matters so much?
Of course. So first off, lineage is this rare thing where developers and the legal department agree. They both love it. So the legal department loves it because you always know where data came from and how it got changed. And developers love it because it's easier for them to debug. So this lineage is really great if you need to ensure compliance and if you want to debug your workflows. So you asked what's special in Ilum. Ilum has this open source lineage service called Marquez working under the Ilum hood, and Spark jobs in Ilum. Each Spark job is instrumented to tell Marquez about what's going in to that Spark job and out of it. So for every Spark job that you run, you get lineage. not only for Spark that's running on Ilum, but there are also other engines like Trino, and you get the same lineage features there. So, this is like, let's say, under the hood in the infrastructure layer, but you can also inspect the lineage. So Ilum has a UI for this. UI allows you to get an in-depth look at the network of how data flows, and it's also super interactive. You can see which jobs changed which data, and we also go through this in the course. It's always fun to read the release notes of Ilum, and Kacper, recently I saw that Ilum has also added a new lineage feature, and it's called ERD view. And do you know how it's different from this lineage graph that we just talked about?
Yes, they have indeed been beefing up the lineage capabilities. First off, there now a lineage search feature that helps you quickly find any dataset or job and see its upstream sources and downstream outputs highlighted. Super handy in a complex environment. They also introduce column-level lineage with tracks how specific columns flow through transformation. For example, you could trace how a customer ID field in a final dashboard was transformed for an action ID column in a raw source, step by step. That granularity is great for answering every detailed question, like where this particular number come from. Now the lineage graph we have been talking about is great to show data flow at runtime. But sometimes you want a more static schematic look at your data model. That's where the entity relationship diagram view comes in. It shows how tables relate to each other in terms of schema and forging key relationship. From a design perspective, Ilum's ERD view lets you see your tables and their relationship in a diagram.
Okay, tables and relationships in the diagram. In the Delta Lake context, I often hear of bronze, silver, and gold tables. Does Ilum's lineage tool also show those?
Yes, Ilum uses the medallion architecture concept. You can tag dataset as bronze, silver, or gold. The lineage UI not only color codes and groups nodes by bronze, silver, gold, but also clearly enumerates dataset with each layer and lets you drill down to see detailed upstream and downstream links and transformation. So even if you have a complicated web of jobs, you can visually distinguish which dataset are raw sources versus intermediate versus final output. It makes understanding a complex pipeline much easier at a glance. Now, shifting gears, I'd like to talk about how Ilum serves both the low-code or no-code users and the hard-code developer. Ilum has a friendly UI with things like notebooks and SQL editor, but it also offers APIs and integration points for engineers who want to extend or automate their things. This dual nature is important because the data platform often has to support a wide spectrum of users, from analysts who just want to click around and write some SQL to data engineers who want everything as code integrated into their own systems. Florian, one thing I know you highlight in your course is building Spark microservices on Ilum. That sounds intriguing. Could you explain what a Spark microservice in this context and how Ilum handles the job execution for different needs?
Okay, so a microservice is basically a block of code or a Spark job that you can execute on demand or on a schedule. And around that job, there's a coupling layer of APIs. So you're very flexible, and you can build very interconnected and resilient systems. So, for example, in the course, we built a microservice with Delta, and we also built a microservice with Iceberg. So you see, again, microservices, very flexible, especially on Kubernetes. And on Ilum, there are three types of microservices, three types of jobs. So they're static jobs. That means you take your PySpark code and you run or execute it once. The second type is scheduled jobs. So you do what I just described, but on a schedule. And you can do this, for example, every Monday at 8 a.m. or so. If you have a nightly job, you can schedule that. And then the third and last type is interactive jobs or services. So they're ready to run when you are, and they're waiting for your input. So you can really supply variables to them, supply inputs, and then have the job run with your parameters. And, Kacper, the cool thing about it is also, because we're on Kubernetes, this autoscales on Ilum. So if suddenly everybody wants to run the same job, it's no problem. Ilum automatically scales up the executor, so you can do and satisfy this demand at the same time. And later you can also see on Ilum what exactly went in to which job at what time. So each of these services, of these interactive jobs, is also traceable. And talking about traceability, there's also the history server. So you get a history of all jobs run on Ilum through that. So this full integration of so many modules that we talked about in the beginning really means on Ilum you have great observability about what happens where, when on the platform. And tracing is built into the Ilum UI. There's logging available. And if you are confusing, if you think, okay, that's a lot to cover, worry not, because we cover all of this in the Ilum course. Also, there's a lesson about the Ilum API, and I think we should talk a little bit more about it. So on the API and extensibility side, how do we interact with Ilum programmatically? So for example, if I want to trigger jobs from external tools, that is maybe not in Ilum, or integrate Ilum into a CI/CD pipeline, Kacper, what does that look like?
So Ilum provides RESTful APIs that cover most of its core function, like submitting jobs, checking status, managing configuration, and so on. That's crucial for automation and integration into DevOps workflow. Since Ilum runs on Kubernetes and follows open standards, it's also easy to extend. You can plug your custom components on external services if needed without breaking anything. In practice, you can fit Ilum into many existing pipelines. For example, an MLflow workflow could call Ilum's APIs to kick off a Spark job as one step of a bigger process. Or you might use Spark Submit tool from your laptop to build servers to submit jobs to an Ilum cluster. Ilum even supports Apache Livy, so you could connect a remote Jupyter Notebook or IDE to run Spark code on Ilum cluster.
Having an API is awesome, and when you think of AI agents or MCP servers, having everything available programmatically really makes a lot of sense. But I think efficiency is key, and from a data science background, I know that sometimes seeing stuff versus having everything in code helps tremendously. So for me, it feels like when you enter the Ilum UI, and you can see it in the course, you can see it on the Ilum website, this puts you in the pilot seat of this giant airplane. There is the table explorer. So you can, in the browser, already run some interactive analysis. Just easy point and click tool. There's the file explorer. And through the file explorer, you have access to all storage that's attached to your Ilum clusters. And I think the Ilum team has at least indicated that soon this will be even more useful than it is now. For developers, okay, if you're a developer working with Ilum, you have the SQL editor. The SQL editor has automated formatting, which is cool. You have notebooks that support Markdown. There are two engines, Trino and Spark. If you're familiar with Jupyter Lab, it's also in Ilum, so you have everything you need. And recently, and I think this is very cool, because as developers, we like our own IDEs like VS Code or PyCharm for local development, and Ilum has also features there and ways to connect your own IDE. As to Spark jobs, it's really hard to lose track especially when you're working with a big team. And there is a well-instrumented overview available on Ilum with an option to dive deep into the UI, through the UI, into that job and into the metrics, and understand what's going on inside that job. All of this, we of course look at in the course. And recently I also noticed this. There's also Git, which is like a Git module that is available in Ilum, fully integrated, but of course you can also connect GitHub or GitLab.
That's a great point. Ilum really consolidates the toolchain. Orchestration, data processing, notebooks, governance, it's all built in. This can drastically shorten the time it takes to go from an idea to a developed solution. Instead of spending days piecing together different tools, you can get moved quickly. Ilum basically puts you in the pilot seat of a powerful data platforms where everything you need is just at your fingertips. You also mentioned orchestration like Airflow, Kestra, and NAL. It sounds like Ilum doesn't lock you into a single orchestration either. NAN, it's a low-code AI workflow builder. Comes bundled for those who want a simple way to automate tasks visually. For folks who prefer Apache Airflow, Ilum supports deploying Airflow as well. That's a lot of flexibility. In fact, I have heard they are even looking to include Apache NiFi in their stack soon, which will give even more option down the road.
There's so much going on about orchestration. And if you're listening to this, and if you're as excited as I am about this, then let me know in the comments or reach out to me, and I will add a module in the course.
We have touched a lot of features, but let's specify focus on the Ilum in the business now. Businesses have particular needs. controlling cost, managing resources across teams, security and access control, compliance, etc. From what we have discussed, the Ilum team has been actively adding features in these areas.
Yeah, I think my experience in business just shows like cost insight and cost control are super important. Planability on a per project basis and per project drill downs of cost and resource use are also super important. And of course, upskilling is very important, because when you can write an efficient Spark query or use Ilum in an efficient way, that means that your business can save money. If there's no strategic focus on stuff like cost saving, then things are risky, costs are risky to get out of control. And I think it's really good that Ilum has these new features. But Kacper, I'm curious, what are these features exactly?
If I put the business story in a play words, with Ilum you can stay in control. Can you set your guard lays, quotas and limits so nobody accidentally burns through resources, and autoscaling keeps the cluster lean when it's quiet and powerful when it's busy. Every run is transparent. The analytics tab in job detail shows per job cost and resource usage with concrete optimization tips. Even for tiny jobs, so you can spot waste fast. Security doesn't get in the way. People sign in with the company SSO, and role-based access control makes it obvious who can create, run, or just view things. Governance is built in. OpenLineage traces data flows end-to-end down to columns, and the ARD view help you reason about the model. With Data Hub integration on the way, your catalog will only get richer. On the operations side, you've got the dashboard and alerts for both the infrastructure and Spark, plus the Spark history server and job level monitoring to keep SLAs honest and catch issues early. And the best part, no lock-in. Ilum runs on any Kubernetes and use open table and file formats like Parquet, Delta, Iceberg, even Hoodie. So your data and workloads stay portable. In short, control, visibility, and choice. Everything you need to scale confidently.
I think this is super important, right? So you have these guardrails to tackle any runaway costs, and you have really this transparency. And I think that matters a lot. That's really what keeps teams moving forward.
Exactly. The business story in one line. You can scale usage confidently without losing the plot of cost, security, and governance. So let's wrap up with some practical advice on getting started with Ilum. I see two scenarios. One, an individual or small team just wants to try Ilum out. And two, a company with a legacy platform thinking about migration to Ilum.
I would say if you want to try Ilum, then go and try Ilum. It's free after all. And I know that many features can feel overwhelming. Therefore, there's the course. To get started, install Ilum. You can install it on your local machine, or you can install it, for example, on Google Cloud with this blog article we mentioned earlier. If you want to get some orientation, explore it for yourself, or you can also get the course and get more insight. Also, in the course community, you can get an answer to your questions. There's also people from the Ilum team monitoring it. And in the course, you also see how people actually use Ilum in practice. So we have two interviews, one with the Ilum team and one with Professor Whitty that you talked about earlier. This was the section about trying Ilum, but then to use it in an enterprise environment, Kacper, you have quite some experience. So how do you actually migrate from legacy systems like Hadoop or Cloudera to Ilum?
I recommended a phased parallel migration. Start by deploying Ilum alongside your existing Hadoop Cloudera environment and point it to the same storage and data sources. If you're on Hive today, connect Ilum to existing Hive Metastore, so your tables and schemas are immediately visible in Ilum without a big metadata rewrite. This gives you instant familiarity and reduces the cognitive load on day one.
So concretely, what does this phase one look like? Do you first do a pilot, or do you move to a whole new workload family?
Pilot first. Pick a handful of non-critical workloads like nightly ETL, a data prep pipeline, maybe a reporting job. Re-implement them with Ilum Spark. Keep I/O path identically at the same start, so you can validate output one-to-one against the legacy system. Measure runtime, stability, and ops effort. In most cases, you will see faster runtime and simpler operation right away. Gather these wins, fix any wrinkles, and create a repeatable template for the next batch of jobs.
And how long do you keep systems running in parallel? You know, people are always afraid of like one big bang switch and everything blows up.
I know, but in this example, you don't need a big bang. Run both platforms in parallel as long as you need. Many teams aim to zero downtime migration, gradually shift traffic jobs scheduled from legacy to Ilum, and keep the rollback path during the cutover period. Once KPIs are steady, you decommission the old path. It's incremental handover, not a cliff jump.
Okay, and you know, for these kind of workloads, I guess support matters a lot. From your experience, like what kind of help can companies get from the Ilum team?
The Ilum team is very hands-on during the migration. There is detailed migration guide in the docs covering storage connection like FDFS and cloud storages, Hive metadata migration, and workflow translation. For example, moving OSI schedules into Airflow and again on Ilum. Beyond the docs, Ilum Engineering TPT partner closely with enterprise teams, sharing best practice, reviewing architecture, and offering practical step-by-step guidance. In my experience, that responsiveness is a big accelerator for teams.
Tech is one thing, okay, but I'm also a big advocate for data culture. So how do you handle onboarding and how do you handle the people side of all of this?
Start early enablement. Identify a few new power users and evolve them in the pilot so they build credibility and context. And then scale out with target training, short role-specific session for data engineers, analysts, and platform ops. Point focus to structured streaming like the Ilum Course and align the platform guidelines. Role-based access control, quotas, cost awareness, so everyone develops good habits. The goal isn't just to use Ilum, but to embrace better practices than in the legacy stacks.
Okay, so just to recap, your approach is Ilum next to the legacy stack, connect Ilum to the existing Hive Metastore, then you run pilot jobs and include some performance measurement, and you then expand in waves, like with both systems still running. And during that time, Ilum support helps you, and then you provide training to the rest of the organization or the wider organization, right?
That's the playbook. I'd add one more thing. Make success visible. Track and share concrete wins, shorter runtimes, fewer failures, cleaner lineage or per-job analytics that highlights cost savings. Seeing measurable improvement builds momentum and keeps stakeholders confident throughout the transition. We will reaching the end of our time. This has been a really in-depth conversation. Florian, thank you truly for sharing all the insights about Ilum.
Yeah, thank you, Kacper. It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed discussing Ilum and everything around it.
To our listeners, if you're dealing with big data workflow, Ilum is absolutely worth a look. It's not often you got a free platform that covers this many bases. In fact, we are seeing a huge industry shift away from this legacy Hadoop Cloudera stack towards a modern solution like Ilum and Databricks. So it's a great time to explore these alternatives. Don't forget to check out Florian Ilum Course if you want to guided hand in learning the platform. Thank you for turning in this deep dive in Ilum. Until next time, take care and happy data engineering.
Yep. Thanks everyone for listening. Happy data adventures, and maybe I'll see you in the course. Goodbye.